The distress beacon on Commander Rhea Vosk's console had been screaming for 4 minutes before she finally believed it. "Say that again," she said, gripping the edge of her console so hard, her knuckles paled beneath her gray scales. "Say it slower." Her communications
Awaken
officer,
the hidden
a young
fleet.
Ithari named Senec,
Let them rise
looked up
beneath
with
the
wide,
frozen
horrified
rings.
eyes.
Order them
The
to
Call
execute
Dominion warfleet,
priority
all
protocol
900
now.
ships. They crossed into Terran space 11 minutes ago.
Behold
Full
our
invasion
unstoppable
formation. Rhea's
fleet.
stomach dropped. 900 warships. Against a species that had only been part
Multiple
of Galactic
hostiles
society for 6 years.
decloaking!
A species everyone still called the New Ones, the Primitives, the loud little apes with plasma rifles. "And Earth's response?" she asked. Senec's voice cracked. "Commander, Earth isn't retreating. Earth isn't calling for reinforcements. Earth is advancing." On the view screen, sensor data bloomed into being. Thousands of small Terran vessels, barely a third the size of call battleships, pouring out from behind the ice rings of a dead moon in a formation no alien tactician in the room recognized. Rhea had studied warfare for 30 cycles. She had never seen anything like it. "They're not organized for defense," her tactical officer whispered. "They're organized for annihilation." Rhea Vosk stared at the screen, and for the first time in her long career, she felt something she hadn't felt in decades. She felt afraid, and she wasn't even the one being invaded. But none of this had begun that way. 3 days earlier, nobody, not the humans, not the Call, not the quiet, careful diplomats of the Threefold Accord, believed war was coming at all. 3 days earlier, Ambassador Naomi Reyes stood in the observation dome of Terran Station Meridian, watching Earth turn slowly beneath her feet. She was 51 years old, silver-streaked hair pulled back, and she had spent the last 6 years trying to convince the galaxy that humanity wasn't a threat. It hadn't been easy. Humanity had entered galactic society the way a storm enters a quiet harbor, uninvited, disruptive, and impossible to ignore. Other species had thousands of years of interstellar history. Humans had 6. Other species had slow, careful councils. Humans had built 3 colonies, 2 orbital shipyards, and a functioning trade network with the neighboring Ithari conquered in the same span of time. They made everyone nervous. Naomi understood why. Ambassador. Her aide, a sharp young officer named Priya Okonkwo, entered without knocking, tablet in hand. "The Call delegation has requested an emergency session." Naomi turned. "About the border dispute?" "About more than that." Priya's face was carefully neutral, the way it always was when the news was bad. "They're accusing us of expansion into contested territory. They're calling the Ashvale Corridor a Terran land grab." Naomi almost laughed. The Ashvale Corridor was a stretch of empty space nobody had claimed in over a century. 3 uninhabited systems drifting between Call and human territory, useful for nothing but a refueling waypoint. "That's absurd. We haven't even sent a survey ship out there." "They say we have." "They have sensor logs, Ambassador." That stopped her cold. Something didn't add up. And Naomi Reyes had learned, in 6 years of dealing with a galaxy that still didn't trust her species, that when something didn't add up, someone was lying. She just didn't yet know who. The Call Dominion was not a subtle power. It had conquered 11 star systems in the last 2 centuries. Not through diplomacy, but through a military doctrine built entirely on one principle. Strength must be tested, or it means nothing. Warmaster Threll Koss, commander of the Dominion's 3rd Fleet, believed this more fiercely than any officer in Call history. He was broad-shouldered, ridge-boned, with a voice like grinding stone, and he had spent 40 years watching younger, weaker species rise and fall around the edges of Dominion space. He did not believe humanity was different. "They have no history," he told his war council, pacing before a holographic display of Terran space. "No honor codes, no centuries of discipline. They stumbled into the stars by accident, and the Threefold Accord protects them, like a child that wandered onto a battlefield." His second, a colder, more calculating officer named Vesa Orn, folded her arms. "The forged sensor logs will give us cause. The Accord cannot intervene if the humans strike first. And they will, once we push into the corridor. Predictable species panic. Predictable species retaliate without thinking." Threll's eyes narrowed. "You're certain the humans will take the bait?" "I'm certain," Vesa said, "that no species in galactic history has ever refused to defend territory they believe is theirs. It isn't about the humans. It's about instinct. Every species has it." What neither of them knew, what no one in the Dominion War Council understood, was that human instinct wasn't the problem. Human preparation was. Naomi Reyes discovered the forgery 11 hours later, at 0300 station time, staring at raw sensor data until her eyes burned. "Here," She jabbed a finger at the screen, where Priya sat across from her, equally exhausted. The call logs show a Terran survey ship in the corridor 40 days ago. But look at the drive signature. Priya leaned in and her breath caught. That's not a human ship. That's not even close to human ship architecture. It's Call, Naomi said quietly. A modified to look Terran. Badly. Whoever built this forgery has never actually studied a human vessel up close. The two women sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what they'd found settling over the room like a physical thing. They're manufacturing a war, Priya finally whispered. Yes. Why would they need to manufacture one? They have 900 ships. We have. Priya stopped herself, but Naomi finished it anyway. We have 60 warships in that entire sector. Everyone knows that. Which is exactly why this doesn't make sense. Naomi stood, pacing now, her mind racing through every briefing, every classified report she'd ever been shown. Unless the Call don't actually want a real war. They want a short one. A demonstration. Something to remind the galaxy that humanity is still small, still fragile, still. She stopped. Ambassador? Priya asked. Naomi's face had gone pale. I need to speak with Fleet Command, right now. Because Naomi Reyes had just realized something the Call War Council never once considered. Humanity's 60 visible warships in that sector were never the whole story. They were the bait. Fleet Admiral Marcus Cole received Naomi's call from the bridge of the TSV Endurance, hidden with 400 sister ships, behind the ice rings of a dead moon designated only as Waypoint 7. A fleet that existed on no public registry, built quietly over 6 years by a species everyone still underestimated. They're going to fabricate an incident and push into the corridor, Naomi said, breathless. They think we'll retaliate blind and lose. Marcus, a broad, weathered man with 26 years of naval service before humanity had even left its solar system, allowed himself a small grim smile. Ambassador, with respect, we've known about the forged sensor logs for 6 days. Naomi froze. What? Keel encryption isn't as good as they think it is, Marcus said. We've been reading their internal communications for weeks. We knew this was coming before you did. Then why didn't anyone tell the diplomatic corps? Marcus's smile faded into something harder. Because the moment we tip our hand, they change the plan, and we lose the only advantage we have. A surprise. I'm sorry, Ambassador. This wasn't your call to make, it was mine. Naomi should have been furious. Instead, she felt something colder settle into her chest. So you're going to let them invade? I'm going to let them think they're invading, Marcus said quietly. There's a difference. When War Master Threlkas gave the order to cross the border, he expected panic. He expected the scattered, disorganized retreat of a young species suddenly facing overwhelming force. Instead, his sensors lit up with 400 Terran warships, rising from behind a dead moon in perfect formation. A formation built not for defense, but for a coordinated pincer designed to trap his fleet against the corridor's gravitational shear line. That's impossible, Vesa breathed, staring at the display. Where did they? They knew, Threll said slowly, understanding crashing over him like cold water. They knew we were coming. They let us cross the border. On the comm, a human voice cut through the Dominion battlenet. Admiral Cole's voice, calm, almost gentle. War Master Koss, you are currently inside sovereign Terran space, based on forged evidence your own government manufactured 6 days ago. We have the original files. We have your encrypted communications. And we have 400 ships surrounding your fleet's only viable retreat vector. Silence. You have 1 hour to withdraw peacefully. After that, we stop being patient. Threll Koss, who had spent 40 years believing strength must be tested to mean anything, finally understood what he was looking at. Not a young species that had stumbled into the stars by accident. A species that had spent 6 years letting everyone underestimate them on purpose. The Dominion fleet withdrew within the hour. No shots were fired. No lives were lost. And within a week, the forged evidence, along with War Master Koss's own recorded orders, had been shared with the Threefold Accord's full council, ending not just the crisis, but Vesa Orn's career and nearly Koss's along with it. Naomi Reyes stood again in the observation dome 3 weeks later, watching Earth turn beneath her when Marcus Cole found her there. You're angry with me, he said. I was, she admitted. I still think you should have trusted me sooner. Maybe, he said. But we didn't survive our first 6 years out here by being careless with trust. We survived by being patient, by letting people underestimate us until it mattered. He paused. That's not going to change, Ambassador. Not for a long time. Naomi was quiet for a moment, watching the slow blue curve of the only home her species had ever known. No, she finally said. I suppose it isn't. But maybe that's all right. Let them underestimate us a little longer. Every time they do, we get a little more time to prove we're worth trusting instead. Below them, Earth turned on, patient and unhurried. Exactly the way it always had. And somewhere out past the ice rings of a dead moon, 400 ships stood quiet watch, not because humanity wanted war, but because humanity had finally learned the oldest lesson the galaxy had to teach. Peace only lasts as long as you're ready to defend it.